Greetings, everyone, and welcome to the Dracovin Empire again. We're once again diving back into the world of Golarion, the world of the Pathfinder role-playing game system. We're visiting another nation today, so we're not just plane shifting there for any location, going to a specific one. We're going to Nirmathas. So, join my hand, your host here at Dracovin, as we plane shift through the multiverse to Nirmathas in Golarion. Woo, we're arriving. We've arrived near Nirmathas. We can start learning about it. We could get some reference material to learn about it, some books. Perhaps things like the campaign setting book and Inner Sea World Guide from first edition, which were great places to learn about things. And of course, one that I would always land the Lands of Conflict from that. Or even, if you want to look to second edition, the World Guide. All these things are extra information where you can dive deeper into Nirmathas. But what is Nirmathas with its flag here? Well, it's a country that recently gained its independence from the imperialistic nation of Malthun to the south, and it's struggling. It continues because Malthun continues to try to reclaim it. The people of Nirmathas are proud of their freedom, their liberty, and being self-sufficient. And they are on guard constantly from incursions from their southern neighbors or from other threats. They're on the bank of Lake Inkartha. They're meritocracy, with Forest Marshal Welson Gavik as the current leader from the capital of Hammer. There you go. There's some basics that you might know about. Let's talk about the land of Nirmathas over there. You can see some of the other regions nearby. So as I said, it's on the western shores of Lake Inkartha. That's one of the largest body of waters. To the west is the 9 penetrable Mindspin Mountains, which do block out things like Varisia and Nidal from even thinking of getting near them. The largest and lowest pass through these mountains, the notorious Bloodstone Vale, is the best overland connection to Varisia from central Avastin. So they can kind of go to Varisia. Most of eastern Nirmathas is dominated by the southern Fangwood Forest. 3 major rivers run through the nation: the Torndal River to the north, Inkwater River to the south, and Meredith River running along the southern border of the southern forest. What kind of places, settlements are there? Nirmathas is a primarily nation of small villages. They're scattered about its plains and forests. It does have a few larger cities. The biggest, of course, is Hammer, on Lake Inkartha itself, its capital. There's places like Crossfin, Kassin, that are located in the northern parts of Fangwood, Skelt in the western plains. All these are major locations. We have the names of many small villages and cities through there. Pert, Forlath, Redborough, Redstem, Fort Valian. All these are locations you can visit, some of which we know a little bit about, others we know very little. There are some other independent locations within here. The dwarven city-states of Glimmerhold and Kragadon in the Mindsplit Mountains are technically in their territory, but not considered part of Nirmathas. Nor the druidic settlement of Crystalhurst in the Fangwood Forest. Cameron itself, its capital, is a ramshackle city, especially for a nation. That's the capital of the nation. It's built on piers and pilings over marshlands at the mouth of the Madrith River, where it meets Lake Inkartha. There's bridges, ramps, and causeways full of barges and skiffs. Everything there is made of wood, due to the fact that it's still standing after its super violent history. It is seen as a symbol of Nirmathas' tenacity and resourcefulness. They're always at war, and the place lacking any kind of defenses, including a city wall, would seem to be terrible, but history has shown that their best defense is the sea. So, and at one point it did have a city wall built in 4646, 2 years after the formal start of the Freedom War with Malthun. But in the first offense, the city was claimed, and the Northern Rebels were not fully organized and had to reclaim the city months later. So, yeah. And since 4709, the worship of Razmir has been outlawed by decree of Forest Marshal Welson Gavin, since proven that the clergy were bullying and extorting local businesses in town. There's some inns, taverns, and locations that are in the big city, and a nice Pathfinder lodge. So, yeah. And a monthly market. There's the Green Glade, if you want to visit there. But that's the basics of the places you could live in if you're in Nirmathas. What else is there? Well, we should really talk about its tumultuous history, now that we know about it, because Nirmathas as a nation hasn't existed on its own for very long. Throughout its history, it's only been about a century of being independent. Probably less than that. Most of the time, it was a province of first Taldor, then Cheliax, then Malthum. And it was from Malthum that they gained their independence. Malthum was seen as just another resource-heavy province, ripe for the harvesting by everyone that controlled it. It originally was settled as a region in the Second Army of Exploration by Taldor, attempting to explore these regions, especially the area of Lake Encartha in 492 AR. So some over 3,000 years ago. Nearly 4,000 years ago. So, the lands here was attempted to be settled, was almost forced out by the brief encounter with the Orcs and allied Keld tribe and Fey-allied Keld tribes. And the first founding of the province, we get to beyond there. We get to, of course, the Even-Tongue Conquest by Cheliax in 4081. So we got some people kind of moving in there, the Army of Exploration. They don't really give a big settlement there. Doesn't mean there aren't people in this region. But Malthun, as a territory which included both Nirmathas and Malthun, was basically conquered by Cheliax in 481. So no longer was this region under Taldor reign. Of course, Imperial Cheliax had its tight grip of that region until 4606, when Aridin died and Cheliaxian Civil War. And in 4632, Malthun, which included Nirmathas at the time, declared independence from Cheliax. Basically, at that point in time, the people in the north, in what would be Nirmath, kind of saw things, and these were independently minded people, realized that basically they had traded one distant imperious master, the Chelaxians, for another, who just lived a little closer. So, the people of the Fangwood in that area basically thought nothing was going to change if we don't do something. So, the deep festering resentment of the territories between themselves led to the embers of rebellion, and it was started small sabotages, more like vents of frustration, but eventually became a full-blown rebellion. So, the early years of the Freedom War, starting in 4648, again, about 75 years before current time in Golarion, the rebellion known as the Freedom War in the north, the Northern Rebellion in the south, was a chaotic series of separate, ineffective skirmishes until Ingral Nirmath, an Ivorian trapper, managed to achieve a number of victories as a small leader of woodsmen. With success mounted, his reputation and army grew, and within 7 years, in 4655, Nirmathas had led his forces to victory. Fortunately, he didn't live to see the fruits of his labor, as he was felled by an assassin's blade on the night of the rebellion's battle. The new country was named in his honor, and since that year, Nirmathas has been a free nation. So this person, Nirmathas, basically caused the victory for the place. He led this. So, we get to recent years. We're a free country now. Woo! So, in the last decade, there's been numerous hardships. Military offensives launched by Malthun, the devastating Iron Fang invasion, led by General Erzadi. Of course, both nations suffered from Iron Fang invasion. Nirmathas bore the brunt of the Hobgoblin's brutalities. Presently, the destruction of Lastwall and the approaching of undead forces by the Whispered Tyrant have put them in a precarious position, but they've managed to preserve through some factors. Firstly, it benefits from a resilient and seasoned militia that was forged during the Iron Fang invasion. Secondly, the influx of well-trained refugee knights from Lastwall. And foremost, the war between Nirmathas and Malthun has somewhat cooled off due to external threats. Discussions of diplomacy with Malthun and Oprak have emerged, although opposition to proposals for alliance with these nations remains due to lingering resentment in previous wars and justified fears of potential military reprisals. Yeah. Now we turn to this man. Forest Marshal Welson Gavrick, the current leader, sort of Nirmathas? Basically, government in Nirmathas is fairly informal. There's no strong central government. It's mostly decisions are handled on the local level. Local governance varies by town to town, so it's a patchwork of laws, traditions, procedures. The people of Nirmathas don't have a lot in common, but they have one trait they share, a dislike of regimented bureaucracy, like the ones that was forced upon them by everyone else that's ever controlled the country. Cheliax, from Taldor to Cheliax to Malthu. Basically, the only authority figure is the Forest Marshal, the commander of the military who's also guides foreign relations, and who's elected every 4 years by prominent leaders and soldiers. Welson here is the current one, serving he's born in Tamaran. He's seen the city sacked 5 times by Malthu. He's recognized by his face. Recently minted coins have his likeness. He's elected for a 4-year term. And he's got passion about his defense, and he's not without compassion. So, yeah. He has a military position more than anything, but he does deal with the foreign relations. So, he is a kind of civil figurehead in a lot of ways, and looked after very well. The military, though, basically, the nation's military suffers due to the people's love of independence and self-reliance. You can't run an army of free spirits. Forest Marshal does not amenable job of coordination. His battle plans often go awry when different groups decide they have a better plan. Much of the army's made up of bands of Nirmathi, who wander from town to town fighting injustice and view themselves as the embodiment of Nirmathas' free-spirited attitude. The military does receive some logistical support from the Steel Falcons and Andorra, who hope to mold the new nation into their image while combating the influence of authoritarian Malthu. Hey, they like freedom too. Maybe Nirmathas has a little too much freedom, but you know what? We can maybe mold them in a little bit of that direction. Maybe. The problem with Nirmathas is they're surrounded by enemies. Malthu to the south, which just... I mean, like... They've unofficially been at war since the very inception of the nation. Since the peace came from the rebellion. To its west is Varizia and Nidal. Nidal being not really a very friendly place. The Orcs of Belkazin to the north, who have always had warlike ways and threaten peace. Of course, Oprak, which, despite a non-aggression treaty signed by both, there is definitely misgivings and mistrust of the new nation. And certainly there is places like the dwarven city-states of Kragadoom. Though independent, basically the thing is they're not sure Kragadoom will support them if they go to war with things like the Wisp Tyrant, who's in the area too. Though there have been more dwarves than usual seen outside the massive walls of the Sky City. Last Wall was a great ally until it collapsed. They both fought against the Orcs. Yeah. But, again, they didn't give each other direct military aid. Last Wall was also allied with Malthum. Now that we've got the Gravelands filled with undead horrors, it's another threat. So, yes. Some groups that are left over from there, the Knights of Last Wall, the final resistances of it, Knights of Everflame, Chrysandor Rangers, stay that course and keep that border to the undead. And they still have the resources of Fangwood and Mindspin, but people understand the importance of taking only what land can provide here, meaning that they don't gather a lot of extra resources for trade. They get by on what they have. As a result, they have fostered cordial relations when basically a kind of alliance actually with the Fangwood Forest inhabitants. It's pronounced in Crystalhurt, the ancient settlement situated there. The druids of that place identify as their own. They're members of Fangwood. Basically, Andorra is the only nation they can rely on. They align politically closely. Andorra has been shipping weapons, armor, and supplies through Druma, across Lake and Carthagena. So, yeah. And basically, they've managed to do it sneakily, so Malthum suspects this is happening, but can't prove it. Can't prove that we're sending weapons to your enemies? Rebels? I don't know. Malthum really doesn't know. Who knows? So, who's there? If you're looking for the people that are here, the humans at very least, are of Chalaxian and Varisian ethnicities, or Chaldean Varisian ethnicities, I should say. Though the people of Nirmath don't tend to judge a creature on its tend to judge a creature on its actions rather than your ancestry or even ethnicity. The people of Nirmath are around for a love of individual freedom, hatred of bureaucracy. So, yeah. So, even in the cities, where most people buy themselves in independence and self-reliance, the treats are necessary. There are some drawbacks, though. Without a higher government, basically everybody's running themselves. And basically, the ongoing war between Nirmath and Malthun has drawn grim-spawn Cambions, obsessed with death and destruction. And yes, there are others there, but it's sort of like, whoever you are in the nation, you're there, you're part of the nation. What are you doing? What's your actions? That's how we're judging you. Judging you on that. Main deities are Gozerf, Erastil, the Green Faith, and those that champion noble causes like Iomedae. Ferris Marshal Gavrik, of course, I mentioned, outlawed, Razmirez. Though there are some Razmiran temples that theoretically already exist in the area, and his say may not extend beyond the cabin too much. And if you want to know, there is a small group of hunters that's recently formed in the southern Fangwood called Foxclaws, who can do hit and run attacks on Malthunian military supply carriers. Basically to just continue to piss off Malthun. Or to maybe make sure they can't really launch an attack. Or both. But that's Nirmathas. I did a video about Malthun a while ago, and I wanted to do one on this one, because the two of them are tied together intrinsically. Yes, basically they both have very similar history, but the divergence between the two has been massive. When Malthun gained freedom, they thought they had all this talent. But the people of Nirmathas were like, hey, you guys, you're just as terrible as them. Screw you, we're on our own. And they've been doing it well since then. Mostly. They aren't really in a friendly area. They've got a lot of problems along them. Like, sure, Varese is not a problem, but no, there's not major nations of Varese. Nidal's not a great people. Okrak, they did some damage to them. Malthun still hates them and wants to reconquer them. The Hold of Belkazin and the Gravelands, all of these things are not great neighbors. Even Lake in Carthan's not as good, because the Whispering Tyrant's hanging out in the middle of them. He might not have armies up in the Gravelands, but he certainly left a lot of undead up there and horrors of his attack up there. So he might not be leading forces, but he's hanging out over there in the center of the goddamn lake. Nirmathas is surrounded by hostile. And it's so hard to say if they can deal with it or not. But they've managed so far because Malthun just can't conquer them. No matter how hard they try, they can't get them back. Malthun also has been smart to not have an open war. It's been a kind of shadow war. So it's this interesting shadow war between these two nations that's still technically going on, a bit the backdrop of an area that is just hostile. Nirmathas, for its freedom, love of independence remains. And it's an interesting nation to visit because you visit one town and they've got completely different rules and laws than the next town over. Wherever you go, it's going to be a new thing. They're still Nirmathians, they still love their independence, they still probably love their country, but they're just like, we do what we do here. That's Nirmathas. Very interesting nation to dive into. I hope you enjoyed, though. This was an interesting one to talk about. I was planning on talking about it when I did Malthun, but I didn't want to do it right away. So there's a little bit of delay between the two episodes here. Notice. But certainly speaking, diving into this nation has been fun. And we're kind of filling out lots of the Dread, Avastian region. A lot of nations done already. There's only a few left over that I have on my list of regions and nations to talk about. Well, we'll get to them eventually. But I hope you enjoyed this. Hey, if you want to see more of this stuff that I've been doing here, remember check out my schedule. It tells me when I'm either live on Twitch or uploading things on YouTube. That's up on Discord, Twitter/X, and YouTube. I put the schedule up like Sundays, Mondays, and that time, so you can check it out. It tends to be kept to it. But again, life stuff could move things around, but it gives you a general idea when I'm around. And you can always check out my social media to know when that's exactly happening. keep people up to date for that one. So if there's always a delay or something going on that would change that schedule, Discord. Discord's the best, but Twitter/X is the second. For now, I'm not going to get other social media in the future. If you are over on Twitch and joining me live, just give a follow. If you're over on YouTube, hey, like and subscribe and ring the bell. Those are always great things. Always a nice little thing to do for your YouTube. And, yeah. Remember to check out Crimson Queen Wednesdays at 8 EST. That's my live play Pathfinder 1st Edition. Very fun. And, of course, Discussing Tabletop Saturdays at 6. Those are the two shows I love to shout out. I'm going to shout them out. Let you know about them. But anyway, I think that's all the shout-outs I need to do. I tried to remember everything in the second weeks, but I'm mind-numbed from not remembering anything ever. So, hey. Anyway, in the future we'll talk more Pathfinder, more Golarion, more nations, more ancestries, more places, more peoples, more things, all those things. But until those next time, I bid all of you, or when we talk about any other role-playing topic, world, etc., a deep and wonderful farewell.